witnesses are staying anonymous. They're terrified of threats and bullying. It's a very neutral and interesting piece.
Blake Lively is having a total meltdown after a fearless Hollywood reporter dropped a shocking truth bomb that exposed her more than ever before.
Prepare for what she doesn't know they have, and again, they have a lot.
What looked like a simple illustration cover turned into a ruthless takedown wrapped in glossy print. And while she's faced backlash before, this one has landed in absolute career-ending territory.
Now the Hollywood Reporter has seemingly outed the two actresses' names. They're pretty much being bullied to respond.
All of this unfolded on the Hollywood Reporter's February 22nd cover, a masterpiece that completely dismantled Blake Lively's act, featuring an image of her launching a slingshot at Justin Baldoni, as if we were back in medieval times where legal disputes played out this dramatically.
As TMZ is now reporting, of course witnesses are staying anonymous. They're terrified of threats and bullying. Now this smells like Blake's PR team trying to spin why they're not coming forward.
If the goal is to make her look completely ridiculous, mission accomplished. Rather than standing her ground like an adult, Blake is now immortalized in this absurd scene.
If Justin was too huggy or whatever the heck, or said she was sexy, none of this warrants this. And you still have to atone for what you did.
Blake's team wasted no time throwing a fit, calling the cover sexist, because apparently everything is sexist when you're losing, and claimed the illustration reinforced negative stereotypes about women who speak out. But if a drawing is your biggest battle, maybe your case isn't as strong as you think.
She goes in and there's a lot of Twitter complaints, some of which, 2 or 3 of them are horrid and shouldn't be there, but some of them are spot on.
Instead of presenting actual evidence, they went straight for the classic outrage playbook, hoping the internet would rally behind them, but instead, people are laughing at the sheer irony of someone who constantly preaches about strong, independent women only to crumble over a magazine cover.
A lot of comments that she puts in here that you're just like, why would you want to take over someone's movie? The outfits in this end are so out of touch. No, we don't want to watch bullies like Blake.
And the best part, the article didn't stop at the hilarious artwork. It went much deeper, highlighting Justin Baldoni's Baha'i faith, which suggested that this entire mess was an ABO.
I found that incredibly telling. Hidden in a little footnote, her protection that, well, you know, I was told they were lawfully obtained. Yikes. Big yikes.
In Toro 8, her team's response was classic deflection. Rather than providing actual proof to support her claims, they went full attack mode on the Hollywood Reporter, acting as if questioning Blake's version of events was a crime, with no facts, no new evidence, just pure, unfiltered outrage.
There's not a shred of evidence to support it. Really? Really? Really?
They expected the public to blindly support her, but all they did was highlight how thin her entire argument really was. If there was ever a moment to step back and rethink the strategy, this was it. Yet she chose to dig herself into an even deeper hole.
Because of the way he is culturally with his religion. I want to go through some of these pieces because, hear me out, here it is. So, from the outset, the feud's been framed as the newest chapter in Hollywood's ongoing fight for gender equality.
By bringing Baldoni's religious background into the mix, the report shifted the conversation in a way that completely undercut Blake's narrative, forcing people to consider that his actions weren't malicious at all, just misunderstood through Hollywood's hypersensitive lens.
Even before Ends With Us, Baldoni wasn't afraid to interject elements of his religion on the set. He did talk about his religion a lot, says a source, on 5 Feet Apart. This had shades of Scientology, but with less of the prominence and people hovering at the times. I think that's being mean. Nothing I've done makes it anywhere near the criminal accusations and things that Scientology does.
Rather than considering this as a valid perspective, Blake did what she does best, played the victim, ignored nuance, and stuck to the script. But the audience isn't buying it anymore. Every detail of this scandal now only cements how painfully unserious she has become, as her team's outbursts, baseless accusations, and desperate attempts to control the narrative scream damage control on steroids. And the harder they try, the worse it gets.
Blake Lively may think they have the upper hand. Sources say she has no idea what's coming regarding her battle with Justin Baldoni.
Instead of proving she deserves the respect she demands, Blake is exposing herself as someone who simply can't handle reality, and the irony is that the more she tries to escape scrutiny, the more she becomes the main event.
Yeah, it's a little bit more pro-Blake than I think the reality is, but it is more neutral than most Hollywood trade pieces I've seen, and it brings in something much more interesting, which is this leap of faith.
The public once had blind faith in Blake Lively, but that loyalty evaporated the moment glaring inconsistencies appeared in her story. Instead of standing firm, she conveniently removed key text messages from her amended lawsuit, messages that, if left intact, would have completely shattered her narrative.
Team Justin has not given up, and they are being incredibly aggressive because Brian Friedman is doing his job. This is what he does. It's a winning strategy, and he pretty much can't lose at this point, it seems, because Blake's been unable to provide anything realistic.
This wasn't just an innocent tweak. It was a calculated move to erase the cracks in her allegations, a desperate attempt to keep the illusion alive. But instead of strengthening her case, this strategic omission only set off alarms, making it painfully clear that the truth wasn't exactly on her side.
Showing a little ankle, but not the whole leg, if you know what I mean. I'm sure she wouldn't approve of that reference. Too sexist.
Media outlets wasted no time tearing her claims apart like vultures on a carcass, with every new headline delivering another blow to her credibility and exposing her accusations as nothing more than a fragile web of selective storytelling.
She knows what they have, everything that's on the website, so she can prepare for that, but she can't prepare for what she doesn't know they have, and again, they have a lot.
The more she tried to dictate the narrative, the more the media showed that her legal strategy was as unstable as a house of cards in a hurricane. At this point, it's less a case and more a theatrical production, with Blake scrambling to keep the spotlight where she wants it, anywhere but on the facts.
Justin kept everything. Now, why? Why would he have kept everything? That's a good question. Well, did you think he did something wrong? Or could the, interactions on set have been so uncomfortable for some, it was just because of the way he is culturally with his religion?
Legal analysts have been watching this circus unfold, and they're far from impressed. Instead of presenting a solid, evidence-backed case, Blake keeps shifting her approach like a magician pulling new tricks out of a hat, with every sudden pivot feeling less like a well-thought-out strategy and more like a frantic attempt to cover her own missteps.
There's another possibility, one that has less to do with gender than it does with simple cultural misunderstandings. What if much of it, the alleged inappropriate hugging, which Blake mentioned in her new amended suit, the pre-filming praying, could be explained as a clash between a very specific, faith-driven community with its unique mores and a much more modern, post-Me Too one with its own set of beliefs and commands?
The constant legal flip-flopping only makes it clearer that she's out of her depth, relying on smoke and mirrors instead of actual facts. And if her credibility wasn't already hanging by a thread, her erratic legal tactics are practically sawing that thread with a chainsaw.
Never worked with a male director who was so worried about everyone's emotional and mental well-being. There was an openness and emotionality to a style that was more typical of a woman, and it probably wouldn't be an issue if it was a female director.
While Blake presented herself as someone deeply concerned about everyone's emotional and mental well-being, with an openness and emotionality more typical of a woman, which might not be an issue if she were a female director, Justin Baldoni's team has been methodically dismantling every accusation with cold, hard facts. No speculation, no vague claims, just concrete evidence directly contradicting Blake's version of events. This isn't a battle of opinions anymore. It's a reality check. And as Baldoni's receipts keep stacking up, Blake's case is starting to look less like a pursuit of justice and more like a desperate attempt to control the story.
Justin genuinely believes that if we do this, we'll work better as a group. There's a little bit of an arrogance to it. If it's like he doesn't want to acknowledge the world we live in, which is that most people don't want to do this kumbaya.
And then there's social media, where the tables have turned so quickly. Blake must have whiplash. What began as unwavering support has morphed into relentless backlash, with memes, sarcastic commentary, and ruthless critiques turning her legal drama into one giant internet punchline.
Now, Blake, allegedly, according to these sources, and there's a lot of stuff in here, whole piece is worth a read. Now, Blake has shared with friends, allegedly, that she considers this a fight that's bigger than her.
People aren't just questioning her claims anymore. They're outright mocking her every move. Instead of rallying behind her, the online community is dragging her narrative through the mud, making it clear that her attempt to control the conversation has completely backfired. And to make matters worse, Blake's legal team pulled a last-minute stunt by filing an amended complaint just before the deadline, a move that reeks of sheer desperation.
Likely to be remembered as the spark that ignited the next chapter of the Me Too movement. On the other side is a billionaire producer, a novice filmmaker, director, and a small Baha'i, sorry if I'm saying that wrong. I think it's Baha'i employees who believe they are simply living up to the moral code of their faith.
Instead of clarifying anything, they padded the lawsuit with even more vague defamation claims, doubling down on portraying Baldoni as the villain in this already absurd drama, and in a flimsy attempt to bolster her case, they added claims that other women on set felt uncomfortable, of course, with no actual details or specifics, making the lawsuit feel like one long, exaggerated monologue with zero substance.
A version of this where Justin Baldoni was just Michael Scott in The Office, where he's just saying inappropriate things, but not with any ill will. But Blake Lively, much more different culturally, more about the power and thinking that this is about the feminist Me Too movement. How dare you do this?
Every new twist in this spectacle of incompetence only cements Blake Lively's reputation as a manipulative actress who thrives on deception. The endless legal maneuvers, blatant lack of transparency, and constant attempts to rewrite reality all add up to one thing. This isn't about justice, it's about control, and no matter how much she tries to twist the story in her favor, the cracks in her performance are too big to ignore.
Doesn't provide any text, she doesn't tell us who these people are, just says they don't want to get involved right now, given all the toxic virality out there, and that they will testify if necessary and be part of disclosures, etc., coming up, depositions, what have you.
The fact that these texts were deleted speaks volumes about the fragility of her narrative, as some of the removed messages explicitly suggest her team inflated their claims far beyond what the facts could support. Instead of presenting a coherent case, Blake chose to sanitize her own records in a desperate attempt to control a story that is rapidly unraveling. And with Baldoni's team already providing context for the deleted messages, there is no doubt that her narrative rests on shaky ground. This omission is not a minor oversight, but a glaring red flag that undermines the entire foundation of her allegations.
First thing I noticed is, as I compared it to the last one, a lot of texts were actually removed. This is the new document, as I made a note here, but as you'll notice here, this is the original complaint. As you can see, that first text is still there, but she removed, they removed quite a few texts.
Legal experts quickly pointed out that the removal of such evidence was no innocent mistake, but a calculated move to obscure the weaknesses in her case. They argue that the absence of these texts fuels speculation that Blake's claims are far weaker than initially presented, and the very act of deleting critical evidence suggests a deep-seated insecurity about the veracity of her allegations.
Realize how lucky he is right now. We need to press on him how effing lucky. The whispering in the ear, the connotations, the JFC, other members feeling uncomfortable watching it. I mean, there's just so much.
It's as if she knows that when confronted with the truth, her story would collapse into a heap of inconsistencies and outright fabrications, and this maneuver, in all its clumsy audacity, only further tarnishes her reputation and reinforces the narrative that she is nothing more than a desperate actress grasping at straws.
Revealed the context of these texts because they did look more nefarious, but the context, if you read the full exchange, shows that Justin's publicists are saying it doesn't even matter if it's not true.
In Toro 27, while Blake was busy erasing inconvenient truths, Justin Baldoni's defense mounted a robust counterattack, aggressively challenging every one of her baseless allegations and leaving no stone unturned. With a formidable legal strategy, Baldoni's team systematically provided documented evidence directly contradicting her claims, with his lawyer Brian Fredman, renowned for his aggressive litigation style, playing a key role in dismantling the flimsy arguments presented by Blake's team.
You really outdid yourself with this piece. That's why you hired me, right? I'm the best. Remember the removing emojis, the fact that this is all out of context? Well, they addressed that in a footnote that I found incredibly interesting.
It's a clear display of legal prowess, as Fredman and his team maintain that Baldoni's actions were misinterpreted rather than inappropriate, producing an impressive array of texts, calls, and emails that support his version of events.
His work produced the communications to Miss Lively in a connection with a lawful subpoena, and the documents included within this complaint are attached in the format in which they were produced subject to the subpoena.
Sources close to the case reveal that Baldoni possesses extensive evidence, including crucial communications, proving that his conduct was entirely professional, with every piece of evidence supporting his version of events.
has understood the produced documents, the text messages that were in her original complaint and are in this one. She has understood the produced documents and communications to have been lawfully obtained. That's how she understood it. They were lawfully obtained, maintained, and produced by Jones.
The robust defense from Baldoni's camp clearly demonstrates that his actions were misinterpreted, not malicious, with a legal strategy focused on proving defamation and reputational damage, effectively turning the tables and exposing the broader agenda behind her claims.
Images such as emojis, when available in a preserved screenshot, for example, were attached as produced. So the way I take this is, well, if those texts weren't real or they were edited, it wasn't our fault, they were Jones' work. But girl, they are your fault.
Her inability to embrace different cultural expressions is as transparent as it is hypocritical, while Baldoni's affectionate demeanor, marked by warm hugs and open emotion, is simply his way of connecting with people. Blake perceives such behavior as an affront to her warped sense of decorum, and although some colleagues described his actions as caring and supportive, others, blinded by rigid expectations, found them uncomfortable.
You're calling retaliation is them defending themselves against your out-of-context, picked and choose text messages that may have been unlawfully gotten.
Instead of considering that these differences might be perfectly normal in a diverse environment, Blake seizes on the discomfort to falsely allege misconduct, and the very notion that a cultural misunderstanding could justify her outrage only highlights how little substance exists in her argument.
I find that incredibly telling, hidden in a little footnote, her protection that, well, you know, I was told they were lawfully obtained.
Adding insult to injury, reports reveal that Blake lively exerted an iron grip over the production, orchestrating a power struggle that left little room for genuine creative collaboration. Far from being a collaborative force, she allegedly made multiple arbitrary demands regarding the script and filming process, using her star power as a weapon to force decisions to bend to her will, micromanaging every detail as if the project existed solely for her benefit.
I want to go through two sections where she attempts to address the taking over of the film, which is very telling. None of the requested protections were tied anyways to Miss Lively's creative input in the film and were made months before discussions regarding the cut of the film.
It's a classic display of authoritarian behavior, where control is hoarded at the expense of actual productivity, and the amended complaint, which she later downplayed, is nothing more than a desperate attempt to sanitize her record, even as evidence of her tyrannical tactics becomes undeniable.
At that time and moment, with the completion of the film uncertain, Miss Lively did not request, nor did she receive, any creative rights, editing rights, credits, or any other role on the film beyond her roles as an actress and executive producer.
Her legal team claims her actions were meant to create a safe work environment, yet in reality, every decision she imposed was a calculated maneuver to assert dominance, and Baldoni's team counters this narrative by revealing how her so-called safety measures were merely a cover for her obsessive need to control every aspect of the production.
She did all this as some sort of Byzantine plot to take control of the movie at some future point, which she did not do in any event, is absurd.
The final version of the film bears the unmistakable mark of her interference, with a series of forced changes reflecting her overbearing presence rather than any genuine concern for the crew's well-being. Instead of fostering a creative and respectful atmosphere, she turned the set into her personal dictatorship, all in a misguided effort to rewrite the narrative in her favor.
Maximum Effort could have been taken over, which it was. Maximum Effort, her husband's production company, literally took over the marketing, as Justin's proven, which she does not admit in this.
The stark contrast between Baldoni's respectful, culturally enriched approach and Blake's aggressive, dictatorial behavior is undeniable. His actions, marked by authentic displays of emotion and
I had leverage and I didn't use it. I merely set up this whole precedent, you know, so it could help the crew. Yeah, right. As if that also wouldn't establish a control pattern that you then used and made everyone afraid of you.
Meanwhile, Blake's relentless control and arbitrary demands reveal a manipulative force determined to impose her own vision regardless of merit, and her constant need to micromanage every detail rather than collaborate only highlights the pettiness of her ambitions, as if she believed her star power entitled her to override any collaborative process, even at the cost of alienating everyone around her.
And it brings in something much more interesting, which is this leap of faith. Did the director's Baha'i religion play what role did it play on set? And could all of this just gone wrong because of one big cultural misunderstanding?
In a desperate bid to deflect blame from her own authoritarianism, Blake clings to the notion of a cultural clash as a shield against criticism, pretending that Baldoni's behavior, rooted in his Baha'i faith and expressed through simple acts of warmth, is being unfairly misconstrued as harassment. This shallow narrative is nothing more than a feeble attempt to mask her own aggressive tactics, as she deflects from admitting that her overbearing control on set was the real issue, using cultural differences as a transparent ruse to cover up her self-serving agenda.
While you're holding everything over his head as if he does anything, he's screwed. I mean, this is, it's shocking, but it gets worse. It gets worse. One incident, they're filming the slow dance. As you recall, you can pause and watch this read this.
Blake Lively's portrayal of the slow dance scene is a desperate attempt to rewrite history, as she accused Justin Baldoni of adding unapproved intimate gestures, leaning in, kissing her forehead, and caressing her, without her consent. However, video evidence clearly contradicts her account, showing her actively engaging in the scene and even initiating some of the actions she now claims were forced.
What she said in her original complaint about the dance sequence. Oh my God, wait till you see how she changes it now due to the filming being released. It's unbelievable how she attempts to frame this.
Baldoni's team maintains that the scene was always intended to be intimate, a genuine portrayal of mutual attraction rather than unwanted advances, and adding fuel to the fire. The Hollywood Reporter featured an expert who wasn't even present on set, casting further doubt on Blake's distorted narrative. Critics argue that her attempt to rewrite history is merely an effort to strengthen her case with fabricated details, selective editing, and embarrassingly distorted facts.
To play it here, and you can pause and read it yourself. Mr. Baldoni did not provide notice or seek consent for any intimacy in advance. He chose to spontaneously improvise the scene while the cameras were rolling.
Adding further complexity to this debacle, reports suggest that Jenny Slate has allegedly filed an HR complaint against Baldoni, though the exact details remain undisclosed. Insiders speculate her grievance might align with Lively's claims of on-set discomfort, with some arguing it supports the narrative of a hostile work environment, while others contend it's entirely unrelated to the main legal battle. Yet if her complaint proves connected, it could add significant weight to an already fragile case built on shaky foundations.
This took place while he was in character as Ryle, because both the intimacy and dialogue departed from what had been agreed to in the script, which was slow dancing in their own world, drinking, watching. What she's failing to mention is it's a big part in the book. They don't kiss right away.
Yet Jenny Slate's persistent silence only amplifies the ambiguity, leaving everyone questioning the true extent of on-set discomfort. Her potential testimony, if it ever surfaces, could be pivotal in revealing the reality behind Lively's exaggerated claims, further undermining the credibility of her entire narrative and casting a shadow over the legitimacy of her legal strategy.
It's the buildup, and he's not kissing her. So it's very clear from the outset what that scene was meant to be. Them locked in the trance, going as far as they could go, and this idea that she couldn't speak out and say, no, I don't want. So, because she did multiple intimacies with scenes with him later.
The controversy deepens as Blake Lively frames the entire debacle as a feminist battle against workplace misconduct, clinging to the #MeToo movement as a shield to deflect attention from her own inconsistencies and painting herself as a victim of a systemic problem.
The one who constantly is trying to take control and direct. There's footage of her forcing herself on Justin to make out with him, and I doubt there were intimacy coordinator scenes on the street in those scenes either.
This clash has reignited fierce debates about gender and power dynamics in Hollywood, with some accusing Lively of exploiting a noble cause for personal gain. Critics warn that her false accusations risk undermining real victims of harassment and could set a dangerous precedent for future workplace disputes, creating a tangled narrative that obscures the truth and distorts genuine discourse on consent and respect, further confounding public perception.
Was scripted in advance does not justify Mr. Baldoni's improvisations or attempts to add graphic scenes into the film. She then later goes in and explains. It's ridiculous. The video footage shows Miss Lively trapped. She was trapped.
Blake's attempt to use the slow dance scene as evidence of impropriety is a transparent maneuver to distract from her own shortcomings. By accusing Baldoni of unapproved intimate gestures, she not only distorts a consensual, scripted moment but also tries to cast herself as a victim, yet video evidence showing her willingly engaging in the scene completely undermines her claim of non-consent.
Lively did not want to film additional takes of the scene, but continue to participate to be a team player and support the production in real time, while simultaneously expressing and holding physical. It's insane!
Baldoni's team, armed with clear and consistent evidence, insists that the scene was intended to be intimate from the outset, and furthermore, the so-called expert promoted by The Hollywood Reporter is merely a puppet, meant to lend unwarranted credibility to her narrative despite having no real knowledge of the events on set.